Welcome to the class on AI. I'm Larry Rudner. I use AI quite a bit professionally. My former life, I was a psychometrician. I was involved with the GMAT exam. If you wanted to go to business school, you had to go through me. We used AI quite a bit for the GMAT exam. I did some early research on automated essay scoring, and I did some work on measurement decision theory. Both were AI models that we use. I used AI professionally to help develop parallel test forms and to design new tests. I taught a course here 2 years ago on AI, and I look back at that class, and that was pretty primitive. Everything I did professionally was very primitive. The stuff I taught 2 years ago was very primitive. We now have this whole new world of AI, the AI that you're hearing about every single day on the radio and TV. And that's the AI we're going to concentrate the most on in this class. That AI is really accessible to us, everyday people. I'll be talking about how I use the new world of AI and some of the activities that I've done. And we're going to structure the class. The first half will be examples of AI, not the large language models, not ChatGPT, but other applications of AI that we can use that I think you'll find interesting. And in the second half of the class, we're going to concentrate on ChatGPT. A lot of my presentation was edited extensively, first by Pam, my wife, and then also by Bard and ChatGPT. My wife overruled most of the stuff that ChatGPT made. I was heavily using that in the design of this class. One of the handouts I'll be giving you after the class is a list of sample prompts. The real task in using today's AI is formulating your queries, your prompts properly. If you just give it a task, it'll give you a response, but it may not be what you're looking for. So there's an art to developing the prompts. I have a handout, about 10 prompts for prompts that I developed, and about 12 prompts or 14 prompts are prompts that Bard or ChatGPT developed. I'm not sure you'll tell which ones are which, although some of them are clearly representative of my current life. My hobby is growing oysters, and so a lot of my examples here are boating and oyster related, so you'll see. 2 years ago, researchers were predicting that AI would surpass the human mind in 20 years. Now that prediction is 5 years. It's exploding at a rapid rate. One of my slides, I talk about the cutoff of when ChatGPT used its data. That's now obsolete. I've got to tell you, the slide's wrong. There's new data on that. This stuff is constantly evolving. My goal is for you to be able to follow it if you want, but definitely be able to use it.
So I mean, you'll have to teach the class again next semester?
No promises on that. Can't read my notes here. I designed this class, so I've had notes that you can read. I was going to not read the notes. I was going to read my internal notes, but I really can't see them too well.
Do you want the thing that the riser up again?
Yeah, no, that's not going to help. That's not going to help. I like to use as an example a thermostat. The old thermostats of 10 years ago were simply on and off. At a certain temperature, it kicked on. So we're talking heating mode. This is the winter. It was pretty simple. That's clearly not AI. It is a machine doing something for us. There's no real intelligence involved there. It's a simple algorithm. They then developed systems that had automatic setbacks. House would like to get cooler at night. It's still not AI. It's a simple algorithm at a certain time of the day it goes back. Add motion sensors. If you're in the room, it makes sure this room gets heated. That's still not AI. There's no intelligence involved. It's simply applying an algorithm. Now we have the world of Nest and Echo Bee, and Honeywell has a product, I think it's called Lynx. It has AI built in. It learns your house. You say, I want my house to be 70 degrees at 8 o'clock in the morning. It checks the outside weather, it checks the data it's gathered from your house, and it knows to start the furnace at 6 o'clock. Or maybe it's warm out, it starts the furnace at 7:30. There's AI built into that. That's the type of AI that we see quite a bit as the world evolves. I like to think of the evolution of AI in terms of the methodology. And this methodology, again, let's go back 2 years. We started seeing AI being applied. We started hearing horror stories. AI couldn't do this, or AI did something wrong, it was biased. It was not a very promising scene. A lot of those issues have been recognized, and we don't see those issues today. First type of approach I want to talk about is expert systems. The idea here is that we can sit down with an expert and figure out all the if statements. We can then come up with a prediction. So, quick example. Early chess systems. We just look at what the current board is, and if the current player does this move, then the next player might do that move. And you can picture, what if he did this move, what if they did another move, a whole range of ifs, tons of ifs. Plot out the whole board with ifs. That would be an expert system. Worked pretty well. The nice thing about these expert systems is you can trace back, why was this decision made? It was explainable. That turned out to be a very important concept. You see lots of versions of expert systems. You'll notice these are mostly hard sciences, physics, where the clear-cut rules will work. What they found is as they started trying to develop these beyond basic systems, that became very difficult. The experts didn't agree on what to do. A lot of fields, there's a bunch of hard science, there's an art that goes with it. And they couldn't capture that art. So expert systems, they were good. I think in 10 years, the AI researchers will say this is not AI. Today they say this is AI. It's a machine doing something that intelligence does. But in 10 years, that'll probably drop out because they say there's no interactive learning going on. Optimization is something actually we're all very familiar with. The approach here is we want to minimize something subject to constraints. So what's something we've all used? Navigation systems in a car. Minimize travel time subject to the constraints of highways, road intersections, speed limits, current traffic. I mean, you can even add your own parameters. No toll roads, no boats, or something like that. I'm building something out of 2x4s. I want to minimize the wasted wood. I need 5 pieces of wood that's 47 inches, 3 pieces of wood that's 39 inches. Wood comes in 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot lengths. What's my optimal system for cutting the wood so I minimize waste? Okay. And by the way, you can do that in Excel. I'll provide you with a link. It's called Solver. It's one of those little known functions. It's really rich. Actually, I used that solver or a higher level of solver in my professional work. There's 2 design tests that are completely parallel. Same mean, same standard deviation, same expected score for people of the same ability. Lots of optimization examples. Major users of this, Amazon. Where do we put a warehouse? What do we put in the warehouse to optimize delivery times to our customers? There's a joke in the trucking industry that UPS drivers only make right-hand turns. They use optimization, it's called supply chain management. They use optimization to plot the route that the truck driver does to deliver the packages. Very explainable. The math for this was developed in the 1950s, but it became kind of popular when we all had access to computers in the 1980s. Bayesian nets is my favorite approach. As I said earlier, I developed one of the first AIs used for automated essay scoring. So I'm going to use that as an example. I can explain that one well. Our target variable was what grade we give this paper. We start off with 500 papers, 100A, 100B, 100 had been already scored. 500 had already been scored. And we look at the words that are within the essay. And you'll see that, the A essays will use phrases like soar. Let's say it's an essay on eagles. The A essay will talk about soaring in the sky. Might mention DDT, 5-foot nest, whereas the C paper might say big bird, big nest, eat fish, different language. So you can go back to the next essay after you've trained it on 500 and say, all right, what words did they use? And are these words like somebody that writes an A essay or like somebody that writes a C essay? The math for this, by the way, was developed in the 1800s, but kind of powerful. Now here's something really clever. I trained it on 500 essays, and now I'm using it. I score an essay. This is an A essay. I can now take the words that are in this essay that the machine scored, as opposed to the essays that people scored, feed that back in, and update all those conditional probabilities. The system is now learning as it's going on. That became what's unique about today's models. Almost all of them have a learning module built in. They advance as we go along, which is usually a good thing. Lots of examples of Bayesian nets. In the beginning days, spam detection is this email spam. Almost all used Bayesian nets. Had about 80, 90% accuracy. My essay scoring had about 80, 85% accuracy. What you'll see next, the neural nets, they have 95, 99% accuracy. So we're seeing a lot less spam in our folders.
Does that mean that medical diagnostic systems only have 80 to 90% of accuracy?
The old ones did, yes. Yes. Glenn asked, does that mean that the medical systems only had 80% accuracy? Yes, the old ones did. The big failure, one of the most notable failures, was the flu outbreak in 1999. The Bayesian models predicted we were going to have this massive flu outbreak, and it turned out to be tiny. The model was wrong. Well, the models looked at travel patterns, virus mutations, surveillance data, but the data was very limited. It was historic. They didn't have current data. The probabilities were therefore all wrong. And they also oversimplified the real world. They didn't include enough variables. Now we move on to today's world. This is today's AI. This is, the good thing is it works really, really well. The bad thing, in my view, is unexplainable. I'll explain that in a minute. Suppose you have a bunch of variables. Let's say we're trying to predict the price of a house. So that would be, I don't have a equation. That would be, don't have a way. That's the pink blob on your right. And we're going to predict it from a bunch of predictive variables. Neighborhood, size of the house, square footage, the number of bedrooms, the zip code, the age of the house, these are variables, the predictive variables. And usually you can develop a pretty good linear model combining these predictive variables to predict that outcome. But it's not totally realistic, and it's not going to get you from 80% to 95% accuracy, because the jumps in house prices are not linear. Once a house is above a certain level and the price increases, they're really big increases, not small increases. The model doesn't take into consideration the location of parks or changing attitudes of the population, things like that. Now, we all know that the more data you can fit into a prediction model, the better the prediction. And so researchers came up with this new idea of a bunch of hidden variables. These are imaginary variables. We're going to let the computer define them. And so we have our original yellow variables, the predictors. They're predicting something. I don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. And that something might even predict another level of hidden imaginary variables. And then finally, that will come up with your output. And you can get real fancy. You can have the hidden layer 2 feed back into hidden layer 1, and so forth. And what you do when you have your training set is you say, all right, I want to have 2 layers of 4 hidden variables. Now go figure the optimal weights. And the computer crunches the data, and it works for a long time for a computer. It comes up with optimal weights, optimizing the prediction. And you can, again, you train it on a small set, and you bring another set in. Does it work? That would be called a validation set. And usually they find works really well. Then you go on to deep learning, and the computer can then start training itself. So like in the case of a language model, you give it a couple of words, what's the next word, or what's the next letter? And the computer will make a lot of mistakes just guessing what the next letter or word is. Eventually you start getting it right. It learns from that.
What happens if the initial variables are wrong? Does it perpetuate the mistake?
Yes, but it's not as bad. Yes, it would perpetuate the mistake, but you'd end up with probably a better prediction than if you didn't have, you went back, and you didn't have the neural nets.
Well,
You'd have a lousy prediction here, you'd have a slightly better prediction here, but it would still be lousy.
Am I to understand when you said they would go back and teach each other, in some cases you might have a 2-directional error
Yeah,
in your illustration?
yes. Oh, the question was, does this mean sometimes you'll have 2 directions in the arrows? Yes. Sometimes you'll have curves that go back and around and so forth.
Can it correct the incorrect data? Does it correct it?
It ignores it, gives it a low weight.
And with this kind of layer, the accuracy is 90 to 100%?
Exactly. This is the model, this is the architecture behind the current models. The large language models, ChatGPT, Bard, they're all using something like this. The original concept is out of neuropsychology. These are called neural nets, because theoretically, this is, or as they say, this is how our brain works. I don't know that body of research, so I accept it. This is how our brain works. We have these neurons, we have synapses, and that's what this is modeled there. Now, this is a very simplified version. You can have a large number of predictor variables. Your output variable could be a set of dichotomous variables. Is this a cat? Is this a dog? Is this a horse? It could be a continuous variable. Pam, you wanted to add something?
Just to be clear and ask a question, so we never know the blue or the green. It's using something, we don't know what it is, but it comes to the.
Pam clarified, we never know what the blue or the green is. They're called hidden levels. The designer says, I want this many hidden levels, and I want this many nodes, points in that. I've been asking ChatGPT, how many weights do you use? 3 months ago, I got an answer, 175 million. I asked last week, and I was told 10 trillion. I'm getting weird numbers, but they're enormous. And the thing is, you got a computer, you got all these letters, words as input, it's going to machinate it somehow. Yes, it's got to be large, very large, beyond what we can imagine and fathom. But this is generally the logic, the model behind all these large language models, the chatbots that you hear about. You'll recognize these. These are examples. The whole concept was developed in the 1940s. Again, with computers, people started playing with these in the 1980s and 1990s. Big paradigm shift. Once computers started becoming readily available, high-speed processors became available. So in 2010, you started seeing neural nets appear in the AI field. And then it just exploded in the last couple of years. The paradigm shift. Part of it, I think, is due to the fact that we're now accepting the black box. These are unexplainable, okay? But we accept that. The argument in favor of the black box unexplainable model is when I have an interaction with you, I don't really know what synapses are being fired, the logic that you're following. I just know what your output is. My reaction to that is, and that's the argument the AI researchers will make. My counter argument is, yeah, but you're you're talking to a machine here. And you don't know what's going on behind this machine. You really don't know what this machine is connected to or what it's capable of. That's scary.
Larry,
So,
can I
yes.
say something? Just for the image recognition, I do some work for Google, and there are people that are checking this. Like, it goes through my photos and asks me to label people so that it can match them to what it thinks who those people are. And then also, is this a memory you would want to see again? Is it important? Does it make you feel emotional? And it goes through. So there are people behind that are kind of feeding that information to the system and correcting it.
Oh, you're the people feeding.
I'm one of the
These
people.
are
There are a whole
tagging
bunch of
these
people.
things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creativity on how they're collecting data. A lot of creativity. And not everyone's happy about it. I think it was the New York Times is suing OpenAI, which is the producer of ChatGPT, for using the New York Times without their permission. Google just got caught. They're using our email. If you have a Gmail account, Bard was trained on your email. A lot of concerns here. One of the early failures of neural nets is a chatbot named Tay. Anybody remember Tay? Tay was this early release chatbot. Microsoft said, here's this chatbot. As you guys interact with it, it's going to learn. Pretty clever. Get everyone to talk with it, get involved in social things and so forth. Well, in a couple of weeks, Tay became major bigot, sexist language, swore at people. Look at the data it was fed. Open, wide open, and people were having fun watching this computer swear at it. They clearly took that off the market. Major failure. Another major failure is Amazon had a product called Recognition. It's facial recognition for the first facial recognition systems. The American Civil Liberties Union didn't quite like the idea of using computers for this. And they fed the pictures of everybody in Congress into the system, and it identified 28 members of Congress that were theoretically on the FBI most wanted list. Very effective argument. That got taken down. You had a question?
Yeah.
You have the in-between, like variables that the computer sets up. Can you go in afterwards and figure out what it took? And then like learn from that?
The question is, if you go back in those hidden levels, those hidden nodes, can you go back and look at the data? Yes, people do that. Rarely can they identify what that node is. Sometimes they say it's made up of this, this, and that. That's some attribute. And they would label it, but rarely. Especially when you got a model with between 175 million and 10 trillion nodes, it's not going to be done. How are we doing on time? Good. Yes, good.
I have a question. The
Yes.
government. Go ahead.
What's the government involvement? I really don't want to get into regulation.
No. Behind the backbone, where it's all coming from.
Oh, well, first of all, we don't know what military is doing. Bob's not tuned in today, so we can't ask Bob. Yes, I'm sure the government's heavily involved, but mostly the activity has been on the private sector.
Which is paid for by the government.
Some
I
of
was
it,
a
yes.
government contractor, I know.
Lots of it is, lots of it isn't. There's now publicly available access to AI models. I've got an AI server in my house. We'll get to that in a minute. So I'm not going to say this is all government fed. And I don't want to get into the long-term policy issues because I can't even fathom it, quite frankly. There's so many issues. So, hey, AI researchers like to classify research as this narrow AI. Think of a baker who only knows how to make cupcakes versus a baker that has a general ability to make anything. Narrow, very specific. What kind of application is this? Is this natural language processing? Is this application of computers? It's all machine learning. So if you can't classify it, you can always call it machine learning. One point I wanted to make back on the neural nets is with a lot of it, you use a massive amount of input. So if you picture an image, you've got all those pixels going across, you have all those pixels going down. You know, what pixel is next to what pixel? So you can have this vast amount of input as an array. For sound, you've got pitches and tones of voice and so forth. Massive input. But again, you've got these massive models. Reactive versus limited memory versus theory of the mind. This is on the handout that I gave you. Reactive is this a basic, simple model that's reacting to the data at hand? Versus, is it taking the data at hand, learning something from it, feeding that back in, and then giving you your answer? The second example is called limited memory. It's learning as it's going. Reactive is it's already learned. It's been trained, we're done. So in the essay scoring example I gave you, you could argue that a reactive is that I don't add the learning module to it. I could say it's limited learning, I add the learning to it. Lastly, I think it's helpful to think of, can we explain this, how it's going, or can we not explain it? I've already given you a hint. Anything dealing with neural nets cannot be explained. Theory of the mind. This is AI trying to analyze what are you thinking when you're asking this question. Maybe I can incorporate your thoughts and emotions into the response. You haven't gotten there yet, but there are a lot of researchers working on that. And the last one, self-aware AI. This is AI that thinks for itself. Remember HAL from 2001, or Skynet? Where's that go?
Terminator.
Yes, the Terminator. Here we go. Don't go forward. Okay. Now I want to show you some examples. This is a picture taken from my daughter-in-law's baby shower. There's Pam in the middle over there. I don't know the people in the back corner. I really don't. And I really don't like these tables over here. Let's erase them. So we can use, this is a tool that we all have access to. It's from Magic Studio. It's called Magic Eraser. You grab a picture, you drop and drag it onto the web page, and then just let's get rid of these things that we don't like. And rather than doing this live, I just made a video out of it. That way, less apt to have an error. You're having an error.
See, but
There we go. No? There we go.
it worked when we tried it last week.
It might be because it's on Google Drive and you didn't download it. This is an important one. Let's try it again.
No, it doesn't even have a link.
Okay, let me click once more.
But even when I do the cursor across, it doesn't change. Here,
Can you give me
let
control?
I can download it. I thought you were running off of this. I thought you had changed from PowerPoint to Google Slides. So I was confused. I didn't know I was supposed to download it, so I apologize for that.
So while she's doing that, anybody have any questions up to this point?
What kind of computing power is needed to generate it with all this activity? I mean, like with Bitcoin, they talk about the power usage.
It's like the power usage of Bitcoin for the modeling end. You got these massive amounts of data. That's why NVIDIA computers are in the news a lot, because they have the fast processors that can chunk that data. Once they got the model and they host it on their server, we're just uploading instructions. So on our end, do this on a cell phone, a primitive computer, no problems whatsoever. It's all heavy lifting is done on the far end. And again, once you've got the model developed, sometimes the models aren't all that complicated. As I said, I'll get it to an AI server that I have on my own computer that I'm running.
Okay, now she
See if that
has.
works.
Okay.
You want me to go ahead?
Yes. So I didn't like the people in the back. I didn't know who they are. So I'm just marking them off. Not being that careful. Notice I've got some overlap. I'm not worried about the edges. The computer will find that. What I want you to notice when I'm done correcting is the window frame and the table. I didn't think Pam would like all these glasses around, all the drinking. So I erased that from the picture. And then I was done. I said, oh, she doesn't want the food plate on it either. Again, when we're done, look at the table and look at that window.
Okay.
I'm done. I click done.
It's thinking.
There you go.
Isn't that impressive? Now, this is free. You just drop and drag and do it. If you want to pay a little more money, now, the first time they did it, they just gave you a low resolution picture. But there's a lot of AI out there that'll let you up the resolution of a picture. So everyone was just doing the eraser there, and upping the resolution somewhere else. So now they have a watermark on it. Or for a nominal fee, you can buy a subscription and do as many pictures as you want.
This is free with Google now. Magic Eraser is part of Google Photos now.
I was
It
just
just
informed-
came out in December, November
So,
of this year.
Magic Eraser, I was just told Magic Eraser is available through Google Photos.
So this goes to the general question of digital photography and the law. Depending on how good this is, no photographic evidence may be acceptable in court in the future, ever. They get a picture of you murdering someone, it doesn't matter. They're gonna have that on eyewitness.
I hadn't considered that. I had lots of fears about this technology.
Yeah.
All of this AI technology, there's a good reason to
It's
fear.
not good enough yet, because they say these edits, when you get down to the pixel level, experts can still say it's
Yes.
been edited.
Yeah, but that's,
But
we all know.
if it proceeds, security cameras are great, catch somebody doing robbery, it's not evidence.
If I just zoomed in, if you zoom in, you can start seeing, well, part of the wine glass is still there.
That was my fault, because I didn't erase it.
Yeah.
But the table's round, the background, you're getting my point here. There are other tools that are readily available for us. Changing the background, you don't like the house in the background, make it trees. Blur the background, upscale an image. We all know about Zoom, blurring the background in Zoom. This is computer vision. It's narrow AI, it's a specific task. It's limited memory because it's replacing the background. So it's learning a little bit. Although some might argue that this is truly reactive, it's just applying a simple formula. I'm not sure. Another example I want to show you. This is from Reimagine Home.ai. Not showing up well at all. Picture, you've got a bare room and you want to know what it looks like staged. Whoops,
I'll just click it here.
okay. And what it will do, it's going to replace the floor. It's going to add a table, paint the walls. You get the idea of what this will look like. This is a free tool. Help yourself. Again, one of the handouts I'm going to give you after class is a list of all these things that I'm using. So you can go play with these yourself. And I'm also going to point you to a website. Got more, way more than you could possibly imagine. Another example is changing the background, changing your landscaping. I think landscape architectures might start having a fear of this. Can you click that, Tina?
I'm clicking.
Trina?
Thank you.
Okay.
It's $1.
That's the dollar amount. Unlimited fun.
Did you choose that? Did you do that?
No, I didn't do that. I grabbed their demo. I started doing stuff around my house. I said, well, I just grabbed their demo.
Right, but you couldn't say Southwest style landscape.
Yeah, I think you can.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you can't today, you will in a week or two. This is a security camera out of my house. I use software called Blue Iris, which is really good security camera software. And it detects motion, very basic motion detection, which is great. Somebody's driving down the driveway, I get an email or a text message. Well, I live on a fair amount of land and we've got deer crossing and foxes, all kinds of animals, and they would bring up false alarm. So Blue Iris has to deal with codeproject.ai, which allows you to interface their AI engine, which you mount at your house, to their software. So it will flag by itself, right out of the box, is this a car, a fox, a horse, whatever it is. Pretty neat. I wanted to go a step further. I'll put it, once you click that, put it in action while I talk. And I wanted to program it to do headlights. So I grabbed pictures of a video that has a car coming down the driveway, and I tagged headlights, one at a time. And now when a car comes down, even if it's a one headlight car, we call them in diddles, by the way, if you're from New England. I think not.
Going down to Florida too.
Oh, well, that's just New Englanders moving slow.
I never heard that until it came from my husband. I'm like,
Okay. So, if you can click that, no. If you can make that move. So anyway,
It's only the deer.
I thought it was really clever at adding headlights.
Yeah.
Now, if one light car comes down the road, I would flag it. But camera has infrared lights. If a bug flies in front of the camera, it looks just like a headlight.
Oh.
So I do get false positives, but not as often as when it was just detecting motion. So,
I ran it twice. It showed the
Okay.
deer going across.
good, good. See a lot of talk about Dolly and computer-generated art. I've had mixed results with it. You feed it a prompt, you say what you want it to draw, and it'll draw. And it's getting big use out of, for teenagers, a cat riding a bicycle or a turtle rowing a boat, things like that. If you want to animate a kid's book, maybe, great. Did have good success when I said, draw a picture of a girl with a basket of oysters using an impressionistic style. And drew a pretty good looking oyster girl. I said, draw a heron in the style of Nancy Hammond. Nancy Hammond is an Annapolis artist out of Annapolis. She had a shop in St. Michael. Does anybody know the real Nancy Hammond? The one on the right, very good. But I think the other two are pretty good pieces of work. If I were Nancy Hammond, I would be very upset.
That's because a lot of people have business of.
It could. It also creates jobs in that there's an art to creating prompts. That's the second half of the class.
It's going to make real art get valuable.
Yeah, that's good.
You can get access to the art through Bing or through Dolly, which is through OpenAI. I'm only going to mention this one briefly. There's several products out there if you want to play with using AI for investments. They claim the data is very good. It's incorporating social sentiment and a wide range of variables in addition to historical data. If you want to play with this, I've got 3 links for you to play with in the resource page, which I'll be giving you after class.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the art, you created, is it accessible by anybody that uses that program? Or is it yours?
I think that varies from program to program.
But if it's.
In general, you should figure anything it creates, Microsoft or Google will have access to it. Who can claim ownership of this? That's a legal question. Well, anybody's conversation. That needs to be decided.
Do these then become part of the learning module?
Usually, yes.
So
The question is, do these become part of the learning? I think it's safe to assume that almost all uses of AI that we use become part of the learning. So when we get into the chat box where you're having conversations, sending text, think carefully about what you're sending. Because it's something you want private.
that's going to dilute the art.
Yes. Yes, I think it's wrong. Oh, it's ahead of me. This is in for fun. It's called Parrot AI. You want a phrase out of a movie, you type in phrase, and it would give you a variety of clips. So I did. Go ahead.
Make my day. Go. Make my day. Make my day.
This is natural language processing. It's got information retrieval, automated speech recognition. It's converting your text into speeches. This is not a learning, this is a limited learning model. This is not a limited learning model. This is strictly reactive. They've got a database, you're typing things in and it's fetching. Oh, this one's one of my favorites. I'm gonna let you operate it so it doesn't reveal the next slide.
I had a button and it just disappeared. Let me go back.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Make my day. Go ahead.
I play that
That's
several
the one.
times.
You have reached the telephone of Larry Rudner. Please leave a message. Remember to say nice things.
Everybody recognize the voice? Let's play it again.
Go ahead.
Oh, keeps going back to her.
I did
You
that.
have reached the telephone of Larry Rudner. Please leave a message. Remember to say nice things.
Once more. You'll know who it is.
You have reached the telephone of Larry Rudner. Please leave a message. Remember to say nice things.
Famous actress, one of the most highly paid actresses. No.
You may have watched these movies with your.
Hunger Games.
Oh, Jennifer.
Jennifer Lawrence. Once more.
You have reached the telephone of Larry Rudner. Please leave a message. Remember to say nice things. You have reached the telephone of Larry Rudner.
I'm trying to get her a picture.
A wonderful application is audiobooks. Today, an author can read for half an hour, and then computers will use that author's voice and give you an audiobook, the whole book in that author's voice. It's wonderful. You want that voice in another language? Push a button, and an author will read his book in French or German or whatever. All through the beauty of the AI. That and playing games like with your phone message, those are the only good applications I find. This opens up the whole world of deep fakes. I just faked Jennifer Lawrence's voice. Just before the New Hampshire primary, somebody faked Joe Biden's voice, said, "Don't vote." Recently, we heard about, I did this with voices, same thing with images. You can replace somebody's face or body in an image. That's what has the Writers Guild all upset. That's what has the actors all upset. Okay, we all just heard about Swift,
Taylor
Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She was put in a pornography video. Reality of it is the world has a horrible history dealing with false information. And now we have tools that you and I can use to generate lots of false information. You have to worry about the bad actors. This is one, the next example is one that, this is one, does cost money, but it's very powerful and I think very useful. Last summer, Pam and I wrote an article about eating oysters in the summer. It's a good article published in the Star Democrat and the Spy. And I want to make a little video out of it. I went to this site, I fed it the script. It then took our script, rewrote it into making it more suitable for videos, and made a little video. I'll show you a part of that video. Whoops.
When you say you put.
Have you ever heard the old adage, only eat oysters in months that contain an R? Well, it's time to toss that myth overboard and dive into the succulent world of summer oysters. This R month rule has its roots very deep in European tradition and old world food safety concerns. In Europe, some oysters bear their young within their shells, making them less appetizing during the warmer months. Pair this with the fact that before the advent of modern refrigeration, warmer waters increased.
You get the idea. I can go back, I can change the text, and it'll reread the text.
What was the program?
The name of the program, well, I used two of them. One of them was called InVideo. That was a little pricey, and you have to be careful. It says only $20, but they bill it by a year. So it's $240.
So you said you inputted the script.
Right.
Do you have to do that manually?
I cut and paste.
Okay,
I had it already written in Word. I just did
okay.
all copy, fed it all in.
They put the pictures in there?
They picked the pictures, they broke it up, they rewrote the script. In video, the example I showed here, used a lot of stock videos and so forth. I can replace the video. I didn't like the video they chose, they give me a library to choose from. Or I can have my own videos. I did have a version with me on the boat working at the time. Flicky is a lesser quality version, but it's cheaper. If you want to play with doing this, you can. Imagine if you have a blog, you can now make a whole series of videos on your blog. Yeah. And you don't really have to give it a script. You can just give it a topic or an outline, and it'll generate all that for you.
The question here, we didn't give it a script, we gave it just a plain old article, and it wrote the script. So to his point, you could write a script and it would be a bit horrible or whatever, but we just dumped the article. And it did a fabulous job.
What Pam pointed out is that we just fed it the article. You could add an outline, just give it a topic. You have more control over the outline of the script. Good
I
question.
was gonna say copyright, how is it? You're getting films.
I don't want to get into that. The question is, what about copyright? I don't want to get into it. Now, that uses a lot of copyrighted images, so I have to pay royalties on that.
Okay, but it tells you,
But it's mine.
okay.
It's
Yeah,
mine.
did you
I
notice that stop
I don't have a
photo?
problem claiming that it's mine. I would have a problem saying I wrote it, but maybe not. I'm not sure how the world is going to turn on that.
Can we have one talking at a time, please?
Next slide. I just briefly, this site is on your your upcoming handout. This is a guy who's trying to make an effort to document all AI tools. And you can filter it by what's free, what's experimental. Some of them have a free trial. Some of them make you sign up with your Google account or your Google account. Wonderful tool. So we're going to skip that. Any questions at this point? Now we're going to move on to the real exciting stuff. This was just interesting. Now we're jumping to a level of excitement. Any questions? If you come up with questions afterwards, feel free to email me. This is the current AI revolution that we're witnessing today. I believe this is bigger than the internet. Internet changed everything. This is going to change everything. And it's going to do so very quickly. What we have at our fingertips for us to use is an abled machine, I was going to say able body, a very capable research assistant, a grunt that we can ask to go do things. Anything you can ask, it can answer. That's pretty powerful. My very first application, I have an aluminum boat with a flat bottom, and it skids quite a bit as you turn the wheel. It was an airboat originally, so it's kind of designed to skid. I ended up with a long chat about whether or not to use EPEG, which is a hard wood, or AZEC, which is a soft plastic board, as runners underneath. And we chatted back and forth, probably a good hour and a half, the advantages of each and considerations and so forth. It was a capable, smart person, smart thing for me to talk to. Now, I'm going to give you the preamble. It's like any other assistant, you got to check on their work. Chatbots today are known for hallucinations. It gives you false information. Michael Cohen's lawyer relied on a chatbot to develop his legal brief. The chatbot used case law that it made up. And he didn't check it. The lawyer didn't check it. And he got caught. Good question. He's not, might even be up for disbarment. So that's one of the big caveats. The other is, it's a tool. and it can be misused. And I think the more we use it, the more we can recognize possible misusage. It's called a chatbot because that's the interface. You type in a sentence or a phrase or a book chapter or something, and it responds to text. In reality, all it is a generative pre-trained transformer, GPT. Computer people like to use big fancy phrases. It's a pre-trained in that it was trained on previous data. It transforms the text that you give it, and it generates a response. GPT, generative pre-trained transformer. Fancy words. The point really to remember is you give it some input, it's going to give you some output. Is it thinking? Is it analyzing? Does it understand? I used to have a good, clear answer saying no to those questions. Now I'm not sure what thinking and understanding mean. I give it a question, describe love. And it can describe all kinds of things that are manifestations of love. Does it know what love is? No, it really doesn't. I just gave it a phrase and it outputted something. You got to keep that in mind. These are all using neural nets, again, with trillions of variables.
So is ChatGPT an actual app that you download and you put into that? Is that correct?
No.
No.
Well, ChatGPT is
Access.
where we're going to, thank you for the question. I think it's the next slide. We're going to show, I'll show you how to access it. There are apps that go to the model. The models, the engines are on Microsoft or other people's website. The two big models are ChatGPT, which is developed by OpenAI, and Bard, which was developed by Google. Microsoft, and those are the two I play with quite a bit. I'm getting very fond of Copilot, developed by Microsoft. I've been playing with that quite a bit in the last 3 weeks or so. And I don't know what Apple's going to come out with the iPhone 18, but it's going to have, they say it's going to have very powerful AI. These are like a website. You go to the website and you chat there. So it's basically, you'll see the screen in a minute. Copilot is going to be built into the Microsoft Office suite of products. So you'll be able to access that AI from there. I've used ChatGPT to brainstorm whether to use ePay or AZAC, get ideas and examples for this class, to read 4 years worth of minutes from the Maryland Oyster Advisory Committee, and then report back. Did it ever discuss AI in those meetings? Drafting email. Interesting, I gave it a challenge to apply a formula. I was given a question from my earlier life as a psychometrician that involved looking up a formula, calculating something involving square roots, standard deviation. I really didn't feel like looking up the formula. And Bard was open at the time, so I just typed in my question. And I got back, I asked the question right, I got back the answer to my question, the formulas, and the steps that you used to calculate it. And the formulas were presented with all the right Greek and so forth. They were the formulas that I recognized and would have looked up. I let Bard find them. Pam and I wrote a grant proposal. We would feed in paragraphs. What do you think of this material? They would feed it back. One of the questions, we put in a proposal for a automated cage flipping system. And the grant, we're reading the review criteria, and 5 points was, how are you solving, or what are you doing to mitigate global warming? Cage flipping system. So I was going to just skip it and say not applicable. Then I was going to lose 5 points. So I gave it to Bard. And Bard gave me back, I'm developing a system to save on the fuel going out to the farm, not the fuel being in there. It gave me a usable answer. I see jaws dropping. That's cool. I have challenged it, asked write a children's story. It did a good job. I tried the optimization problem with the lumber, how to cut the 2x4s. Utter failure. It would take a 47-inch piece, then cut the 39-inch piece out of it. I added the length that it would cut, and it'd be longer than the wood. I mean, it was absolutely horrible in math on an abstract. It's a problem that's done all the time, but forget it, couldn't do that. I asked it to outline a 90-minute class on AI. And it gave you all the good topics and so forth, and how much time to spend on each topic. Adding it up, gave you a 2.5-hour class, not a 90-minute class. So you do have to take
It's like any other expert, likes to hear itself talk.
exactly, like any other expert, it likes to hear itself talk. So this is the interface. You go to OpenAI, or you go to chat.openai.com, and again, the link is in an upcoming handout. And it'll give you a page where you have to sign in. And then once you've signed in, every time you go to chat.openai.com, you end up here. And what's on the left are different things I've discussed with ChatGPT. And at the very bottom is a box to enter your text.
You want me to bring this over? Do one?
Or, no, not yet.
No.
Don't do it. We'll do a live one later.
Okay.
And we'll do it with
Now I
Bard.
can get that.
ChatGPT allows you to delete past conversations. One example that's on here that I did, I gave it a coding problem. Write me a routine, Power Basic, which is a programming language, implementing the nuclear mass iteration routine for estimation. Did it?
Sure.
No. I just told it to do some high-level programming, and it succeeded.
But you said it makes things up. So it does these things. Can you trust it? How do you know?
You should check everything.
Like you tell it
So,
to read all of
just
the
like
last
your-
minutes.
Just like your
Give you a
research
summary.
assistant,
Yeah.
you should check it. Now, in the case of mine, they never discussed AI. I had asked them
Yeah.
to go through the minutes. If there's any reference to AI, tell me, give me the reference.
Yeah.
I didn't know the answer beforehand, and I did go back 3 years. I haven't finished going back 4 years, but I believe it.
Yeah.
Sometimes to trust it, sometimes not, and you'll develop a feel for that. But again, it's like any research assistant you've ever had. Thank you, I'll go back and check your work.
If this is language-based, then you'd expect that I'd have a lot of trouble with that, right?
Yes, and that's its excuse. Yeah. And sometimes you feed it something, and it goes, I'm a large language model. I deal with text. I can't deal with it. But I give it some pretty basic math problems. It did a horrible job.
So when you said it makes things up, as you described, I wouldn't think it could make things up. It's latched on to something in the world that somebody has written that's just false, and it's quiet.
That could happen. It can make things up. They
Okay.
call it hallucinations. They claim that the amount of hallucinations is going down.
Okay.
And again, if you ask it for references, how did you come to that conclusion? Or support these arguments? Then you have something to go back and check
Does
on.
that mean it has dementia?
It's got lots of dimensions. Do I control?
Oh, you know what? I had it back over. There you go.
Okay. This is the interface for Bard. You go to bard.google.com and it'll land you here. Now, if you've got your initial in the upper corner, like you're a regular user, you've got it synced on your phone, you'll go right to this page. Otherwise, it'll ask you to log in. And you can log in through your Google account, or you can set up a login system. But once you've done it once, it knows it's me on, this is Chrome. It knows it's me on Chrome, and it goes right to this page, bard.google.com. And again, it gives a history and gives you a prompt. This one, allows you to talk to it also. And I believe there's a new app where it's got a totally voice interface. You talk to it and it talks back.
So this is free.
This is
If
free.
you're a programmer or something, are there viable chat GPT types of specific programs?
Yes. Going back a slide to ChatGPT, they make available for free version 3.5. For $20 a month, you can get version 4, which gives you priority in getting answers and the latest model. That model, ChatGPT 4, is the model behind the free Bing engine. If you're a programmer, there's enterprise versions, there's business versions, there's lots of ways to tie in and use there, and you pay dearly for that.
And so is the company, is it a publicly traded company?
OpenAI is on the market, is in exchange. I don't know if it's publicly traded. That's something maybe we'll ask that question later. We can ask that.
Google it.
We can ask, don't Google it. From now on, it's going to be Bard. Bard is going to be a better version of asking. Free version. So, big differences between Bard, which is the Google product, and ChatGPT, which is the OpenAI product, is ChatGPT cuts off all knowledge as of January 2022. I read that this morning. It was September 2021 last week. Now it's 2022. Whereas Bard and Bing can go out on the internet and pull down real-time data. You can say to Bard or Bing, go to a website and summarize the information at that website.
So are you saying for ChatGPT, you couldn't ask it to find the most efficient flights to Singapore?
No. But you can do that with Bard.
How different is Bard from Google? If I just type it into Google, are they running on the same thing?
Bard is a Google product.
But it's not the same as the search.
It's not the same as the search engine, but you can use Bard as a search engine.
Okay.
But when you search with Google, you get back a list of links. When you search with Bard, you get back an essence. Or actually get back what you asked it. That's the art that the rest of this class is all about.
Did you ask AI this question? What is the difference between Bard and
I did.
GPT? And this is what came.
Well, it gave me back a much bigger list,
Okay.
but this is the shorter version of it.
Did you ask each one of them? See if they
I did.
different answer.
I did. My experience is that Bard is much nicer to me. Bard is encouraging, gives me very supportive answers. Bard is useful for actually doing research. Where ChatGPT has better memory. I can have a conversation with ChatGPT and it goes back to the very first thing I asked it. Bard, it forgets real quickly. So I can have a task that I'm asking and I'm refining the tasks. By the time I'm down to the fifth question, it forgot what I'm asking it. So I got to repeat myself and it gets annoying.
Take up on the gal's question about a flight to Singapore. If you use Bard and you ask it to find the best flight to Singapore, is it going to come up not only with an answer, but a link to the website?
If you use Bard, will it come up to not just the answer, but a link to the website? Yes. And I did ask it something very similar. So I want to go to a warm island in February. Give me nonstop flights from BWI. And it told me what islands I can get to on a nonstop flight. One was wrong. So I checked. These things are getting better. So whatever I say you can't do now, wait a couple of weeks and you might be able to do that much better. So how do we interact? You've got that interface, you give it a box, you feed in information, out comes an answer. I find that you've got to iterate frequently. You ask something, you get back something, it's not what you really wanted, so you got to refine it, you got to evaluate it. Is this accurate? Sometimes I said, no, that's not right. It comes back, oh, I'm sorry. It does that. It may, sometimes because I wasn't clear, I misunderstood. Again, this is a machine responding to the text we give it. And it's very easy to forget that and think that you're talking to a capable human being. No, you're talking to a machine. But you iterate. Now, ChatGPT has an option in the lower left-hand corner that I didn't notice for quite a while. It lets you tell it, give it a background. I am living on the Eastern Shore, I am a retiree, and give it a bunch of context about me. So now when it answers, it tries to give me things that are relevant to me, as opposed to I am a high school student trying to do something. It gives a different set of answers. So how do you write a good prompt, a good query? And I will argue every query has to have a task. What are you asking the machine to do? If you don't give it a task, it's going to come back and it's going to say, what do you want from me? You give it a task. After that, you're giving it context and relevance, so it gives you the answer you want. Context is, why are you asking this question? That might affect the answer. Here, Bloomberg, context is everything. It gives you a framework for answering the question. The format is, what do we want back? Do I want a list of bullets? Do I want a recipe? Do I want an essay? Do I want a press release? What am I looking for? Tone is, what kind of tone do I want? Answer me like I'm a fifth grader. Write something very formal. Writing a letter of complaint to an organization. Make this legalistic. Whatever. Wide range of tones. And I'll go over this quickly, and I'll just flash these up. These are some of the formats. I've got 3 slides of formats. And yes, I asked AI, ChatGPT, list some formats that can be used, that you can use as now desired formats. So it can write songs, it can write poems.
And that's on our handout.
No, it's not. I'll email it to you. Or I'll do something, I'll get it. More formats. And this one, which is major. We're writing this grant proposal, and we wrote a proposal for one organization, and we had another organization, something very similar. And it had a set of questions. So I already wrote the proposal. So I fed the whole proposal into ChatGPT. Then I took the question that this group wanted, 300 words or less, blah, blah, blah. I gave it that question, and it came back 25 words that answered the question. What I really wanted is between 250 and 300 words. You got to be very specific when you're asking things. It didn't know what I really wanted.
Do college students take advantage of this?
Absolutely.
And high school and middle school.
Maybe you're teaching high students.
The question was, do college students take advantage of this? I've got there's an intern with the Chesapeake Oyster Alliance, and she wanted to come out to visit our oyster farm. And every letter she's written to me was clearly written by ChatGPT.
Can you download a letter to ChatGPT and ask them if it was written by AI?
Yes, you can.
And how good is it at detecting AI?
That I don't know. I suspect right now, I think the answer is yes, it'll do a good job. Or there are tools that people claim do a good job. One point I wanted to make on tools is a whole new industry called ChatGPT Store. People make generative pre-trained transformers for specific industries. And then there's a store that sells these AI tools. These AI tools are really nothing but good prompts behind the background asking one of the major engines. So at this point, be very leery about buying a GPT. Use the free tools, at least first. Tone makes a world of a difference. What level of answer are you asking for? Okay, here's an example. I think this was Bard. Define AI in 2 sentences. Answer me like I'm a 5-year-old. And I get back a very simplistic, colorful answer. Now I say, answer me as if I'm an adult. And I get back a more appropriate answer. Notice I didn't say write a 2-sentence definition. I knew that in the earlier conversation. It's got that much of a memory. Okay. And now, even a simpler prompt. It knows I want it to answer me as if. You go along, you iterate through that.
So does that mean you did this in ChatGPT definitions?
Yeah, ChatGPT generated those definitions. Those are not mine. Most of the time, they were pulled from something else in the literature. So, desired tones, again, it's a list. I can send that to you. It's really anything you want. I mean, the humbling thing is you're now limited to your imagination and your ability, your art in asking a prompt. So we're going to go through an example. Please read this prompt and tell me what the task is. How are we doing for time?
You're getting close, 15.
So what's the task?
Organize a photo.
No.
Oh, give me a guide to it.
Give me a guide. Give me a guide, that's the task. What's the context?
Share.
Right,
Your overflowing photo album.
Overflowing photo album and sharing with family. What's the format? Patience is not a format, that's a
Digital.
Steps.
yeah, simple steps. And tone?
Instructional.
Patience and clear.
Patience and clear. And now what I want to do is I'm going to give you some actual prompts. We'll do some of the exercise of what's the format and what's the tone and so forth. I want to get through a lot of them. We don't have that much time. I really want you to see the breadth of things that you might be asking. And so I'm asking, and just a handout that I'm going to give you is a whole list of sample prompts, half of which I wrote and half of which AI wrote. There's questions.
Yeah, how long can the prompt be? I mean, how many sentences?
The only limit I saw is with Bing on Copilot, and that's 2,000 characters. But Bard and ChatGPT allows you to paste in some. So I took my whole proposal. Please answer this question based on this material. Dash. They pasted the whole thing in. No limit. So, what's the task?
Give me a recipe.
Give you a recipe. Well, the format's a recipe. The task is really design a recipe. Note here, I've got lots of detail that I want. The more detail you can give it, the better your answer is going to be. So be sure to use the sentence, oh no, bad-o, several times. Okay?
How is it going to know after Bounce and Marbles.
Yeah, what's
Is that
Bouncer?
another book?
Bouncer is another book, just like Nancy Hammond is a book.
Oh, okay,
So
so it's.
that's a child's
it's
book. It will know Bouncer.
Can you get to illustrate the book?
I was
Yes.
gonna say that you-
Yes.
Illustration.
Yes, you can get it to illustrate the book as well. Bing is the better engine for that. And I would do that, if the question was, can you use it to illustrate the book that you just had it write? I would do that in several steps. I would write the book, edit the book, go through several times, then I would decide the pages. Then I would feed a page and you draw me a drawing, give me an illustration of this page, and I go through that. This is an example where I pasted in. So I wrote something in Word, copied it all, just pasted it in at the very end. Control C for copy, Control A to grab everything, Control C to copy, Control V to paste it in.
It's laughing, it's word perfect for people that are old enough to remember those first came out.
Yes. I'm gonna skip this one.
Good.
It was so
Yeah,
nervous.
And the last one was, all these are on the handout. Task here, a detailed step-by-step guide. Context is I want to bridge the gap with my grandchildren. Be nice to me, get screenshots, be patient. So I'm giving it, again, context, the task, the context, format, and tone. You can also give it examples, and that's very helpful. Design your answer like this.
So you drop your example in.
And you drop an example in, where you describe the example. Whoops.
Did you read that? Or wrote it for you?
This is an hallucination. This is a perfect. And yes, I did do this. We will be teaching this class again in the fall, by the way. But again, the more detail I can give it, the better. I wanted to make this readable, so I didn't say Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. And then give all the details. But I gave a lot of details here. Here's another example of dropping in an article. Rather than cutting and pasting, I just gave it a link. I'll find this article, summarize the key points. If you're going to disagree with the key points, give me references, check on it, things like that. Could be a major time saver.
It reminds me of, like, what did when you had to read books in college or in school?
Cliff notes.
Cliff notes. Yeah, they're out of business. They're out of business. Pam?
Just out of curiosity, I never thought of this, but once upon a time, we were both also federal. There's one person that did get contract work. Remember when we would get blue pink sheets that were the criteria for either reading, editing, whatever? If you put in a pink sheet or a blue sheet, I don't know what they're called now. Fire and fierceness in it. Would that be copyrighted or would that belong to the government? You try to paste it in and then they wouldn't give it to you?
I can't answer that.
That's a good question, though.
Anything
you do on the government side, the government.
Well, yeah, I said that as well as every question here, he didn't say that. Yes. A lot of it was proprietary, like pharma, they're not necessarily going to give it to you. Anyway, sorry, you got to get down to the top.
Okay. Again, I earlier mentioned you can give it very scientific information, it'll answer it correctly. And I wanted to do this, it'll do the math.
You said it wasn't doing it now.
It's not good at math, can't add. It can do algebra.
It can do algebra, but not.
It can't do anything exceptional. It has no constants in the numbers.
Okay.
And I was disappointed, and I would always check anything involving numbers. But it did this math correct. And yes, I did check. I recognized the formula, and I did check it. What do you guys think about this one? We're gonna have 5 minutes.
You've got 6.
6 minutes. Can you jump into the board? Let's see if we can do a prompt together. Somebody has something they're interested in? We don't have much time to think about this.
Sorry, will it do something that's modern, like a strategy for peace in the Middle East?
You can try that, but I think that's beyond. We're trying to demonstrate something for the class. I encourage you to go home and try that.
It's a jar with native plants and on these.
Okay.
Bard just changed to Gemini. It just
Okay.
changed,
Well, let's-
I had a thing that said, my name is now Gemini.
Okay, well, you go to the prompt
All right.
and say, I want to re-landscape my yard. I live on the eastern shore of Maryland.
What native plants should I use?
Very good.
It should be on the side.
Are we going to ask you to format it, or are we just going to take what it gives us?
Oh, native plants.
Do you want a list, a description? How much detail do you want about each plant? Do you want the Latin name?
Oh, no, just give it the question.
Just give it the question.
For
Okay, like that, simple, I want to re-landscape the yard, we give it a context.
But am I sunny or shady?
No, just answer. Please include native plants,
Just leave it at that.
and then hit the arrow.
What is the website? What's Gemini?
Gemini is Bard.
Bard's name just changed when I opened it up. There was a little pop-up that said, Bard is now Gemini.
And it's going to say, I need more context. Yeah.
Right, yeah, 'cause-
What's the goal for your yard? What kind of soil do you have?
Oh, that's good.
so can I continue down
So
here?
let's continue, let's say, I have very good soil and shade.
Wait, I live on the eastern shore, it's sand. What are you
All right, I
talking
have sandy soil.
Clay soil,
Clay soil.
shade.
Wait, who has
Mixed
clay
shades.
soil? I'm at your house.
Whatever,
Clay soil.
pick some soil, we don't have much time.
Partial
Pick some
shade.
soil
Clay soil.
and partial shade. And I want low maintenance. All right, that's enough.
Okay.
Yeah, portrait black.
Oh, it just
Clay.
says that.
Say clay, you're gonna know that. They're gonna.
Now, that was all part of the first response.
They gave the sources.
Wait. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Oh, my God.
I was wondering if you told it, this is the dimension, give me, give me.
Okay, so
Yeah. The picture, this is the yes.
So it gave me some for full sun, and there's partial shade, and there's full shade.
But you can keep refining and iterating.
Yeah.
And this is now your capable research assistant. So you now will have a research assistant to grunt. You can ask it the same thing multiple times. It'll keep track. Again, do remember, it's using your data. It's claiming whatever you ask it as its own. So don't put anything personal or private in there. And with that, I've got what, 2 minutes? Any final questions?
Ethics questions with this?
Beyond me.
Okay.
Now, the ethics questions are enormous, absolutely enormous.
I had an interesting conversation with a guy who was a salesman for advanced medical imaging. And his viewpoint is all radiologists should be fired.
Already what?
All radiologists should be fired. Machines can do it all with AI.
Yeah, I would argue.
And I said, well, who's going to interpret, who's going to understand what he said? They don't have to, the machines can do it, they're superfluous.
I'm not going to trust the machine, not yet. I want a radiologist to confirm
Right.
what the thing said.
But
Now,
it's,
it'll identify a lot of things the radiologist wouldn't have seen.
and that's what they're doing. What they're finding, the radiologist can't confirm until 6 months later when it progresses.
Okay, so for ChatGPT and for Bard, all this information is based on what's available on the internet. Is that correct? That's
Internet,
basic-
books, email.
All books. Who's in, you mean somebody sat around and inputted all books that were ever written?
Yes.
Yeah, Congress.
What was it called?
That's been going
There
on.
was, I forgot the name of the project, but Google has been scanning in
Oh,
everything that's not
Just
copyrighted.
what's available on the internet, and it's being updated, I imagine, every second of every day.
Not ChatGPT,
But Bard.
Bard,
Yeah.
Can
but
they,
now Gemini evidently.
Oh,
they interpret what they're out there, can they, I think asked to interpret what this means?
Lynn asked, can you ask it to interpret what something means? Yes, you can. And the question is, it's gonna give you an answer based on all those hidden nodes and so forth.
Yeah.
And it'll give you a good answer. Does that mean it understands? I don't know. But yes, it will be able to interpret, it'll be able to tell you, what is the author thinking when he's writing this? What's the author's attitude when he's writing this? Assuming there's one.
I'm curious if they're using AI now for political polling
I'm sure they
to
are.
get to balance the results or, because for the last couple of presidential elections, political polling has been way off. And that's because they went from years and years of doing telephone to everything being online. And they went through a transition period to compare the results and to modulate them a little bit based on what they, big data sets. But I don't know if they're anywhere near reliable yet. It'll be interesting to see.
A lot of this, it's in progress.
This is very rudimentary. I'm a novice.
Good, but
How do you access Bard? You just put it on the internet?
Bard.google.com.
that's it.
That's it. And again, I've got handouts for you with the links for everything that I've mentioned.
Does it do any fact checking?
If you ask it to, but don't trust it.
With regards to this sentence, is that fact check?
You can ask it that. It's going to give you an answer based on your text,
Okay.
and then you can ask it to evaluate.
Could you have asked this to like record your thing and then summarize it in 500 words or something?
Tryparrot.ai has a tool where you put it in the middle of the room, it takes all the voices and everything, and then it generates a summary.
I did that for a course we're getting ready to teach based on the book 1 Second After. I asked it to give me bullet points for a PowerPoint about the book, the themes of the book. And it went back through, I did it so it knew the book, it went through, it knew all the people in the book. It knew what they did in the book, all of that, and it gave me a summary of, that I could, actually was a good starting point for the PowerPoint.
So for if I was searching something, an essay, and they produced an essay, does that then go back into AI and that can then be used?
It learns
for
from-
other, what other?
They reserve the right to do that, yes.
So all the data that they're reaching out and getting to do this is data in the public domain, right, in one way or another.
We would like to think it's in the
Right,
public
right.
domain, but it's not.
But then what about companies that have created their own very large databases, like 23andMe, for instance, that had this idea 10 years ago, create this big database. And in one case, they actually took the data they had and they ran a clinical trial and duplicated one that had already been done. And overnight, they had the answer in the clinical trial. It could take years. And so that's why they were gathering all this data. If that's not available, is it to,
Well, no, that is available.
how
There
is
are
that?
companies that provide consulting services. There are paid-for AI engines. There are experts that will feed your data, make an engine out of it. There are engines that are free in public domain, like mine, to identify headlines.
But when you send your DNA to 23andMe, for instance, that's yours, and they're not supposed to share it unless you.
There's two levels to the data issue. The most common one is the data is yours, but the anonymized data is not.
And they take your
If they
name off.
take your name, your identified off, but all your results with everyone else is in there.
Yeah, that's true. So that's how, so I'm just trying to get a sense of how all this data is available to the chat.
If it's,
the
if
AI.
it's digital, it's available.
And it's subpoenable in the court of laws, even if your personal data. It's
Yeah.
See, on that issue of the trial, on that issue of the trial data and trying to merge, they actually were taking them back to regulatory court, as it were, because they were, back then, they were trying to say, oh, and you have predisposition for cancer, for attitude, whatever, whatever, and that was not accurate. So FDA removed, they no longer could sell those products with that kind of prediction model.
Yeah, I remember when that was happening.
You remember?
Yeah,
So-
there were the board, the
Yeah.
owners there, it was our
I see.
board. so-
Because they were trying to merge and then sort of get rid of one of the levels of the trial, right? Because one is dose limiting or dose, like safety and dose, and then you go into a 2 and a 3. Well, if you could go from, we got the dose to a 3 and do 3 of them, you go to market. And so they were like, oh, no, wait. Well,
So-
the pool
So-
they had wasn't represented.
I think we're way over time.
You're-
One handout is all the links that I mentioned. The other handout is sample prompts. I urge you to read, just get an idea of the breadth of each math. And this is a tiny fraction of what you have.
Good job.
Thank you.